Two. Hello and welcome to another Truth Proof live stream. Great guest on tonight, and welcome, Paul, to the show.
Thank you, Les. And another hot day here in the UK. And like you said, a great guest tonight. Although I think we need to stress at the top of this show that we are having some sound issues. Ron's struggling to hear me at his end by the sounds of things. So we'll be playing this by ear, pardon the pun. So all good.
Struggling at the top of the show, as you say, Paul, but we'll persevere because that's what we do.
Yeah, we will. And let's have a look in this chat. We've got 65 people in here already, and I'm not going to get through 65 names, am I really? But we've got Steve Walsh, hi Steve, Simon Riley, Bobby Dazzler, Tetrastatic, Jackson Hills, Elaine Pym, that's my daughter's mother-in-law, Elaine Linney, Simon Riley. Let's have a look. Andy Codes, Margaret Webster, Martin Abbas, Stargazer, Steph, Bridget Vanden Bosch, Tom Waters, Mark McClinchley, Beer Monster. I keep saying it's a man after my own heart. Dragonborn, absolutely brilliant. Rivington Pike, and what can I say? We've got an absolutely stunning guest, and we're really thrilled to be speaking with Ron tonight. Yeah, but I'm sure he'll be with us shortly.
Support is phenomenal. I know. I've just got to say, Paul, that we have reached the 9,000 subscriber mark. 9,000. What did I say it was? We're nearly at 10,000. We're 100 away from 10,000. 9,900. Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's where we are. So yeah, we're just, if anybody is not subscribed, please subscribe. Just get us to that 10,000 subscriber counts, and we might have an announcement on Sunday when we do get to the 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah, absolutely. And
we're not going to keep Ron waiting. We're going to go straight to the guest, Paul, I think. Do you want anything to add there?
I just hope this sound works.
Okay, so I'll disappear and I'll come back with some questions, because thanks for the questions that are coming already. Hopefully we can get those out to Ron later on in the show.
And before we do pull Ron in, which is just in a moment, if the sound is in and out, send us even more questions because we can get them up on screen for Ron. Let's tax Ron's mind tonight, because this fella really is the real deal when it comes to cryptid research. That's all I'll say. But come on then, let's go.
There we go. Let's go.
Hi, Ron. Great to see you.
Hello, everybody. How are you, Paul?
I'm really good, my friend. Yeah, and really been looking forward to speaking with you for a long time. And love what you do, seen loads of your work. And as I say, researcher, experiencer, boots on the ground, researcher who takes a scientific approach. And anybody within the subject of the cryptid phenomena who doesn't know or hasn't heard of Ron Morehead has been living under a stone. So welcome to Truth Proof, Ron.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. Honored to be with you. Appreciate it.
No, it's great. And I can see I can see there's a bit of a lag, so this might be difficult for you and me. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in the United States, North Carolina, and that's where I'm at right now. It's 2:00 in the afternoon here. So that's a good thing. Actually, I got started with the Bigfoot phenomenon in 1971 when a group of my friends, which were hunters, came in and they talked about this monster that was up there, some kind of monsters, plural. And one of the guys got scared off and he wouldn't go back. And the guys were late coming out. And the Ys always come out to see if they were still okay. They didn't know what they were dealing with. It's a hunting camp. It wasn't a Bigfoot camp. Nobody's looking for Bigfoot. So, but these things were coming around the camp at night and messing with these guys. So anyway, the guy wouldn't go back unless he had someone to go with me. So I was friends with them all and he asked me to go with him and I did. That's how I got involved. I saw the tracks. I heard some of the sounds and the guys were okay. So we came out and I started going back as often as I could. I get someone to go with me. And this went on for years and years. So it got me on the track of trying to figure out what these were. Giants aren't supposed to exist nowadays. That's what it was all in a kind of a religious paradigm back then. I mean, we were Christians, or still are, but It's just not. It's not in your conditioned brain to think that these things are out there.
Absolutely.
Giants like in the biblical times and Nephilim are not supposed to exist nowadays. So I had to start researching it, and that's where I started. It was in the biblical text of giants. It took me all the way back into different translations of the Bible and where the Bible actually started, and I went into the Mesopotamian cuneiform texts to see what the original translations were that most all written languages had their core from. And that's what got me into the ethereal part of what's going on with these things, because a lot of mysteries involved with them. These mysteries is what I couldn't talk about for a long time because it just didn't make scientific sense, if you want to call it that way. But we was looking into Newtonian physics. Newtonian physics is what we live in a third density environment here. And it's what everything is measurable, predictable, material, physical. But that's not what quantum physics is. And yet quantum physics, everything, according to Dr. Christopher Blair at West Texas A&M, everything from the atom all the way through the cosmos works on the grounds of quantum physics. So you got to consider Newtonian physics, because you can measure an apple when it drops from a tree, but quantum physics is a little outside of that. You got to not discard that, but you got to add this to your research, and that there are different dimensions, there are different things going on, and quantum physics will answer the paranormal and the woo-woo factor that a lot of people have. So that's where it got me into crossing the religious paradigm and the spirituality paradigm, which there's a difference a lot of times. We're all spiritual beings, whether we want to be or not. And according to science, according to Einstein, these guys, your energy, which we're all made out of energy, frequency, and vibration, energy can't die. So that's the ethereal part of your spirit. And we have two things in our embodiment here. We have the physical, the spiritual body. And according to religion, it can't die. According to physics, it only changes form.
Okay.
Are you still hearing me there? I don't see anybody.
You're just going in and out
There
a
we
bit
are.
there, Ron. And I'm not sure if you're hearing me, but do you think the word paranormal is an obstacle blocking scientific research?
I'll move up a little closer. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? I think Ron's froze up and...
I didn't catch that, Paul. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Internet, Ron. Not your fault. I would say, do you think the word paranormal is an obstacle blocking scientific research?
I don't think it's an obstacle. I think it just needs to be explained through science, through the quantum physics, the science of quantum physics. And it answers that, and it answers a lot of the woo-woo questions that are out there, because a lot of people think, oh, that's in another world I'm not in. Well, you are in that world, whether you want to be or not. You just don't see it. And there's other dimensions that exist. There's other things that's going on that you just don't see with your eyes. Our eyes are a frequency too. Everything is a frequency, energy, and vibration. You find the vibration of anything, you can change its matter. That's according to Einstein. That's how matter can change into energy. That was established for sure by CERN in 2012 with the Hadron Collider, when two particles collided and turned into energy. They can detect energy, but you can't see it. Our eyes only see within 430, 770 terahertz. That's our frequency of eyesight. Yet all these other frequencies are out there. So you got to understand, I think, first of all, that there's other things going on that you're just not going to witness with your eyes. And you just got to follow that a little bit and start looking into it. And that's all I've done. I'm nothing special. I just happen to be up there when these things were around us. So I've experienced these beasts. I say beasts, my latest book, Bigfoot Unveiled, I got a chapter in there showing that I pretty much established that they have to be part human. So that gets back in, you get into the Mesopotamian Sumerian text of the cuneiform. Like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, it's the oldest written form of language that we know of. And it talks about a lot of things that parallel our biblical accounts of how things started. So it just doesn't go back far enough. That goes back a few thousand years, where the cuneiform text goes back hundreds of thousands of years. And aliens have been coming here for a long time. And I think they have, and according to the cuneiform text and according to our Bible, they've manipulated the genome of a species. And primarily, I think that's where the giants came from. The Bible talks about that. They were called the fallen ones. But in cuneiform text, they're called the Anunnaki, the shiny ones, the powerful ones. And so if you look at how they parallel, it really becomes a little more enlightening to you. It really was to me anyway. So that's all exciting to me. And that's what got me not so much after Bigfoot, but what could they be? They were, I think, created by an alien form, like a lot of things were here. A lot of hybrids on this planet now, including us. But they were created before we were, before Homo sapiens. And then when we were created, we were created in the image of the Anunnaki. And let us make man in our image.
Okay.
Scholars will say, well, that means body, soul, and spirit. Well, that could be, but we're also made in the image of a ninth dimensional being. That's what I think the Anunnaki are. And anyway, that's where I go with it. And it's just a lot of fun and very exciting.
So, Ron, I'm hoping you can hear me okay now. I'm not sure if you can, but you've been researching this 50 years. How has the research changed? What did you set off thinking these things were?
Well, we all thought they were just an ape that hadn't been discovered, some kind of wild gorilla out there running around. But the more we dealt with them, the more we realized, well, these are very smart ones, if that's what they are. And we're still looking for the ape in the woods, walking around, looking all around the area, trying to find out what's going on with these things. They come in during the evening time, generally. However, we did discover that when we go out walking, they would be around our camp during the day. We found their tracks, so we know they are up in the daytime. At least some of them were. And it took me all the way from that into trying to understand the science behind, because everything's got to have an answer. Everything has an answer. And Al Berry, who we took in 1972 to do a study on this, or to just see what was going on, he thought it was a hoax probably, but he came in, we took him in and replenished his supplies, and he studied, tried looking for who could be doing this and how they do it. 8 miles in the wilderness we were, and 8,400 feet in elevation. You can't go in there in wintertime at all, just too much snow. But we would we were having kind of a good time with it, really, after we realized they wasn't going to eat us or carry us away in our sleeping bags or anything. So we all had high-powered guns. It was a hunting camp, so that's what we did. That didn't seem to deter them because we didn't shoot at them. And although a lot of people probably would have, or if they came in the shelter at us, which that's when they were making most of the racket, was when we got inside the little shelter, we would have definitely shot our way out. And we didn't have to do that because they didn't come in after us. So we don't know what their intentions were to start with. It sounds very aggressive, like they're trying to run us off. But we dealt with it, and they didn't run us off. And we kept going back then, trying to figure out what it was, what they were, and more than one. And anyway, it got me on the track of looking into it deeper and deeper over the years. So it didn't come to me overnight. I studied a lot and looked into it a lot, trying to figure out how they could do what they do. And that's like, sometimes you think your camp was being tore apart outside where we had our barrels cabled to a tree, closed up, and you thought all this stuff's being scattered around, and you look out there later and nothing's happened. Well, how do you explain that? You can't explain it. I mean, unless they hypnotize us all, or unless they have a voice mechanism which can mimic all those sounds. We don't know, but sure was strange stuff goes on up there.
That's what I would be thinking. Is that sound projection that they're putting out? Because if you're saying that you can hear your camp being destroyed, and when you look out, there's nothing damaged, that it's got to be that, hasn't it? Surely.
Who knows? We didn't see what happened.
No.
We had a door closed, cable closed. It's just a log between two trees. But it was either, like I say, mass hypnosis, which I don't agree with. I think I don't know. Either that or he's listening into another dimension that they were projecting somehow through frequency, or they were making the sounds with their vocal mechanism, which is very expansive through our studies we had done. Dr. Arlen Curlin at the University of Wyoming studied them for a year, showing they were not manipulated. These things were original. They all had, no sign of 60 cycle hum or no sign of being played backwards or forward or speeded up or slowed down or anything like that. Anyway,
Ron, what about the click? Oh, sorry, go on. What about the clicking sounds?
Yeah. No, when I see your mic grow. Yeah, we heard that too from our stove area. We were 3 of us in camp that night. We're just clicking going on out there by the stove, and it's probably 20 feet away. It kept getting closer to the shelter. The way the shelter door closed, so what could be making that? What kind of environment could be doing that? And all of a sudden, it was inside the shelter. We turn on our flashlights, and nothing's there. It just stops. You turn the flashlights off, and it starts up again, back and forth like that. Well, whatever became of that, we don't know. I heard the same sound down the valley at my ranch down there when I was irrigating one time, and looked around for what could be doing that. It was nothing on me. I couldn't figure out. Same sound. I asked my friend Bill, who was up there at the same time, if he ever had anything happen down here that happened up there. Yeah, he said, you remember that clicking sound we had? He said, I had that happen to me out at my place. So do they follow you home? People call it the hitchhiker effect, whatever. Well, I think they have a method of changing their mass into energy, which is possible now. It's called antimatter. It's the direct exchange. Dr. Paul Dirac got the Nobel Prize in 1933 for that. Somehow I think they can change their energy, or their matter into energy only. And that way they go out of your perception. You don't see them anymore. And if that's the case, no telling. There's so much more we got to learn about this stuff. Just opening your mind up to know that there is a lot more going on that you just don't see with your eyes. And we don't smell with our olfactory sense like a bear does. A bear can smell 20 times better than we do. Anyway, when I see the mic go up to your mouth, I know you're going to ask me something.
Yeah. Spot on. I don't want to linger on the clicking sounds, but do you think it could be echolocation, like dolphins do and whales?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it had a rhythmic sound to it. I don't know. I don't know. I know dolphins, everything communicates, but nothing's supposed to communicate with a verbal sapient speech like we're talking now. Only humans have that, according to Dr. Lieberman, Brown University. He's a cognitive research scientist. And he said only humans, he studied all the primates, and only humans have the ability to speak. And these things we found out through a cryptolinguist trained by the Navy to listen to unknown languages and codes and try to see what's going on with them. And he said they have a language by the human definition of language. And in Dr. Curlin's electrical engineer report, he said that it represented an animal 8 foot tall. Part of it did. And he showed also a graph in the paper outside, up and down the human range, or way outside the human range, way below, way above, and inside the human range, which tells me they can mimic just about anything. And they can do a lot of things to the vocal mechanism that we just can't do.
Okay. So
could the clicking be?
When you were venturing in to the camp, the 8-mile journey in, and then you'd got there with, I'm assuming horseback on mules. How did the animals react? The horses,
yes.
The mule.
They did not jump up and down like most people would expect. They were like they were frozen. They're just still with their ears pointed towards where the sound was coming from, and that's unusual because a bear comes around, they'll just stop and tromp and raise Cain. But when these things were around doing that, they didn't move.
Okay. Did you feel fearful?
Surprising to some people because I think they'd reared up and jumped.
Yeah.
You're a little concerned. I didn't fear because the first few times they didn't eat us and they didn't throw us into sleeping bag or nothing to carry us away. So you kind of felt like your guns, well, worst of all, we had high power. You kind of felt like there was a safety net there, but I'm not so sure it would have been had they came in after us. But we were ready in case they did, but we never had to do that. So really, the thought of shooting at one stopped entering our mind. We just wanted to see what they were and deal with them. And so fear, I really approach fear differently than most people, because I think a lot of these negative energies will feed on your fear. You find what you look for. And if you're fearful, you're going to find fearful things. That's my opinion. And it's called the law of attraction or something like that. But I tell people to try to contain your fear, because that's what'll keep them away. And most people just try to shoot at things they don't understand anyway.
Yeah. Thank you. Obviously, we're going to play. You've sent us a couple of recordings, which we're going to play shortly. But just before we get to that, do you think you were lucky to record them, or do you think they allowed you to record them?
I think they allowed it. I'm not sure they knew our motives so much, because we couldn't get a picture of them, but they knew our motives then. We were trying to rig up cameras to get a picture. Never could do that. They'd outfox us each time. That's what alerted us they're smarter than what we think. Unless they allowed us to record them just so I could be on programs like this and talk to you about where it's taken me into the ethereal realm of spirituality. Because like Tesla said one time, well, one man calls a God, another one calls the laws of physics. Because physics, quantum physics, and spirituality are synonymous, in my opinion.
Yep.
That's what he was saying there.
We are going to listen to these sounds, Ron, obviously, but I'm just interested. Did you ever experience what some people call the Oz factor, or the lower silence, the strange change in air pressure and strange feelings whilst these things were around? I think we've lost Ron.
I missed that, Paul. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
What did you ask me?
Did you ever experience the change in air pressure, the Oz factor, the lower silence when these things were around?
I didn't get what you asked me, Paul.
Okay, I think then we're going to go then to the sounds and some questions, because obviously it's not Ron's fault, but we've just got a bit of a sound issue here. And there's no sound with that at all, Les. So you want to... Oh, well. Could you hear that, Ron? Let's just... Les, Les could do it coming in, because mute your mic, Les. Could you hear that, Les? Because I couldn't hear the sounds.
Yeah.
Okay, there's definitely
just
some sound.
Just ask people in the chat if they had that coming through. See if we've got any response in the chat. Did you hear the sounds that I played earlier?
No sound. No, they didn't.
Oh.
We're having some real technical problems tonight, guys, and I feel for our guest, because I don't. Can you hear me now, Ron? I think we're going to have to fold this, to be honest with you.
Let's see. Can you hear us, Ron? Can you hear me, Ron?
No.
Hmm.
Okay, then. So
you might have to fire him an email across or something, Paul.
Yeah, I will do, guys. And so put some questions up, Les, and I shall, and you'll read them out, and I'll just leave here for a minute.
Okay, so I'll put the questions up, but these obviously are for Ron and Paranormal Coffee Lounge. Ron, I purchased your book. Not finished yet, just finding time to sit down and enjoy it. So unfortunately, I'll put Ron on the screen and be able to read them. At least. I'll put this one on, Ron. Can you hear me, Ron? What does Ron think of the UK Bigfoot? Is it a real creature or something else? Yet the US Bigfoot is a real creature given the vast expanse of the land in the US compared to the UK. Or is it? Obviously, we're not going to get answers from Ron if he can't come back with his audio. But I'm sure Ron can see these questions. And it's unfortunate that we've had this internet issue this evening.
And Ron, I'm absolutely certain you can't hear us, so I think we're going to end this with Ron and reschedule because it's unfair on Ron and unfair on our listeners. So I've just emailed him, and I know you can't hear me, so I'm going to just
answer that question.
Oh,
right, we can have a go. Yeah.
Mark Jones, yeah. What does Ron Big think Bigfoot is? Well, it's a real creature, but it's also in the world, and I've been into NASA. They are real. What they are, I think, is genetic manipulation by aliens into a primate or some type of species here on this planet to make something and to play with something. They want this planet. Aliens do. This is a jewel of the solar system. It's really remarkable. It's got everything that everybody wants. We take it for who we are as humans, and what entities we're made in the image of, we would be proud of who we are, and we would be able to probably evolve a little better. We're made to be a lot better than what we've been being. And unfortunately, we're a warring species that seed was planted here by the negative entities. And we've been that way, but it's going to have to change. Do that through vibration, do that through meditation, which run up and down your body and with your brain, because your brain's been conditioned to believe this is right and that's wrong. And
I'm not sure if you can hear me at all, Ron, but everything's broken up, and I know it's not your fault. It's just an internet connection.
I do right now. I do right now.
Oh my God, that's crazy, isn't it? You can hear me now? No. You're like,
I can put some questions up. I know Ron can hear.
We'll try that, and
he might be able to respond as he was doing earlier while you tried to email him.
I've emailed.
So while you was trying to email him, he was reading the questions that was on screen, so that did help. Let's have a look. His connection might just get a little bit better. Can you hear us, Ron? Right, I'll put the questions up then, Paul.
You've just done that one, Les. We can't continue with this, people. I'm sorry to say it. So we can't continue with this the way it is, and I'm just going to have to reschedule with Ron. I am sorry, and I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave Les for a minute while I just re-email, or we can just close it. What do people want us to do tonight? We can carry on, and we'll have some questions from you.
Yeah, we've probably got a couple of stories on standby, have we, Paul?
I'll have to have, or I'll have something, but yeah, what can I do? I can't do anything about that. Let me just send this email.
We've been on for 30 minutes, and let's have a look. Let's see what people want us to do.
Can Alison send Ron a message in chat in private, please? Is it possible? I don't know if it is. Yeah. So,
yeah, I'll send a private chat and see if he reads it, Paul.
Right. What do we want to talk about? Because we'll have to run with something. Because it's, as I say, we can't just run with nothing, and it's not Ron's fault. It's just the way of things, isn't it? So, Paul, I'm sure I'll be happy to come back another time. I'm sure he will, Dean, and it would have been great to have had your input on this. And for anybody that doesn't know, Dean's had his own cryptid sighting stroke encounter. And stop me if you don't want me to talk about it, Dean, but I'm on the back foot here. So this was in Wales, and Dean was in a motor vehicle with his then, I think you were with your girlfriend, and this creature.
Well, we could play the interview, Paul. I think we've got the interview somewhere.
Have we?
Yeah.
If Dean's up for that. Yeah.
If you want us to play the interview that we did a couple of years back, Dean, just
give us the yes, and we shall go with it. Right. I'm happy to jump online. Okay, Dean, that's it.
Okay,
that's it.
Right.
And I hope give me the thumbs up, Alison, if you've you've messaged Ron. Okay, and I'm just going to go out of here and send Dean via Messenger, Dean, the link. That's okay, Dean. Let's have a look. Come on, where are you? There you go. I feel terrible for Ron, but I don't know how. I don't think it was fair on Ron or fair on us to do that. So you've got the link there, Dean. It's gone to your own Messenger. Give us a thumbs up, Dean, if you've seen it. So yeah, what a disastrous night, but I'm really looking forward to having Ron back on, and let's just see where we go. I'm hoping Dean's going to come, and Alison's definitely messaged Ron, has she? Well, we've been up at Bempton this week. Mick Park's been here. Les has been up at Bempton. We went up there last night. Andy Codes came up, and come on, Paul. Simon Riley, and in fact, there was 9 of us up there at one time on the cliff tops. A lady and her husband came, who just quite by chance. Nothing to see, nothing to experience on Tuesday night, but Wednesday night we did manage to film something quite strange that did a right angle turn in the sky. No navigation lights, nothing. It was very unusual. Do you know, I'd got so many questions I wanted to ask Ron as well, and I'd been looking forward to speaking to him for ages, but there we go. Reschedule Truth Proof, Rivington Pike Beast says, and that's what we will do. I think Dean's got the link. Have you clicked on it, Dean? Let's have a look. Come on, people. Give me 30 seconds, he says. So we'll give him 30 seconds. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I joined you there at Bempton Cliffs there, Paul, didn't I, 2 nights ago?
You did. We did a bit of filming.
And you say we met up with somebody who was absolutely dying to meet you after years and years of looking.
I can't believe it. Yeah, you're good.
Amazing.
And lovely lady, Carol. Yeah, it was lovely to meet her and her husband. And this week, people will have heard me talking about the big cat that's been seen in Danes Dyke over many, many years. Well, it's been seen the last few weeks, and some golfers have seen it. I'm not going to say who, but some golfers have seen it and contacted the police. I put a freedom of information request in, which I got back. Doesn't make it real, people, but they took it seriously. The wildlife officer came out. They've looked at the area. I knew it was there. So it's a large black cat that's in the area. And it'll be predating primarily, I would think, on deer, rabbit, and pheasant. There's plenty of game in area. And I need to rethink going up there at 4 a.m. like I usually do. I've been up once this week already at 4 a.m. But that's just the way of things. And yeah, hopefully we'll get Dean back, and he'll be coming on in a moment. Let's just see. Let's have a look. Give me 30 seconds, he said. Yeah. And there's not like... we've got to get on.
Don't forget, folks, if you've not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and just get us over that 10,000 subscription barrier. We are desperate to get over there. Then we.
Well, I don't think we're desperate, Les, but it'd be nice to get there.
Well, I'm desperate to get over that landmark, definitely. But that's when we'll put the candles on the cake, Paul. So
yeah. Well, I don't know whether Ron's going to stay in background. If he can hear us, give us the thumbs up, Ron, because things might have improved at your end. I can still see there's a delay if he can, because we'll just wait for Dean.
Do you want to try and bring Ron in?
Well,
if anything improved,
I doubt if it's going to have any improvement there, Ron. No, it's a terrible delay, Ron. Absolutely terrible sound lag. So,
there is right at this moment, but.
Providing you're okay, because it's going to be difficult to.
It would be a good idea.
We'll reschedule.
Is sometime when you guys can.
Okay.
Do this on telephone.
Well,
just show your pictures and my picture without me being live. It's probably the live stream that's hanging things up somewhere across the pond. Big ocean out there.
Okay.
Aliens messing with us too.
We shall reschedule then, Ron. But thank you for your time. I'm disappointed, and I'm sure you are, and I know everybody else is. But we shall reschedule. And I don't think.
I think Ron said about October time. I don't know if he got that word in there, Paul.
Did he really? Let's have a look then. So
it was hard to decipher what was coming through there. Yeah, but
no, not to worry. It's not Ron's problem, is it? It's ours. And I don't know how long we're going to have to do this. Have we got any questions for Paul Sinclair in the chat?
Yeah, just put a few questions in for Paul, guys.
I can say, how do you know if it's real flesh and blood big cat and not a cryptid? Okay, then, Kings. I don't suppose we do. That's one of the things. I would think that it's a real flesh and blood big cat, because it's been reported for quite a long time, and there's evidence in the form of animal kills. Now, we've got Dean Cooling in now, stepping in for Ron Morehead. And I'm sure shall we bring you in, Dean? Thumbs up if you're ready. Yeah, we're good to go. So,
okay,
excellent. So, here we go. Well, talk about last minute here, Dean. How good is that?
Can you hear me first of all, Paul?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Right, can hear you.
First of all, I'll apologise to yourselves and everybody. I've got a bit of a lisp. I've been handworked on my teeth today. I'm in the spare bedroom, hence being background. And unfortunately, one of my daughter's parakeets died today, so they're all upset downstairs. So I apologise at last minute. Obviously, I'm like this, so I thought I'd get in the way. But anything to help yourselves out, Paul. And there's anything to help yourselves out.
Right. Well, let's wind it back then, because we've got probably best man in business to talk about the cryptid phenomenon, Bigfoot, Ron, and we've got the sound issues. But when I saw you sat there because I knew you'd be in there looking for this. Tell people about your experience, what you saw and experienced. I know it's not going to take us hours, but it's an interesting one, Dean.
No problem. I'm trying to get this sent to the airport. I apologize. I'm resting on my knee. It happened, as far as I recall, and I apologize about this, Paul. I think I've discussed it with you. I think it was about 98 it happened. Some people would argue a date I shall burn in my head. It's not. I've got to be honest with you. It isn't. I can remember the months it happened, but not the year exactly. However, I was in a place called Usk, which is quite an agricultural and rural place. For any non-UK listeners, it's like sort of like imagine where you get a place like Michigan with a dogman thing happened there, and it's a farming style town, not too far outside of Newport in Gwent. And in this town, they've got what used to be, it looks like a castle. It's now a Borstal prison. I was parked in the car park there with my girlfriend at the time. It was quite late at night, I believe around about 10 o'clock, because after this happened, we shot around to the local pub that my friend owned, trying to get away from this place, and they were closing pretty soon. They were. So we were sat in my car chatting, me and the other half. And if I'm going too fast, Paul, slow me down a bit if you don't mind.
No, you just your pace, Dean. All good.
Okay, no problem. And the car I had, which will become significant or slightly significant in a minute, was a 1967, I think, 1967 Volkswagen Beetle. The reason why it's important is the person who had this Beetle for me had fitted high-performance dampers on it, so the suspension was very, very rigid. It would take a lot for this car to move. When you went through bends, you didn't get much roll, and when you leaned against the car, there was virtually no movement. So myself and my girlfriend were sat talking, chatting about Lord knows what, and I felt a bump, which to me felt like came from the left side of my car. That surprised me, obviously. So some bumps in your car, you're going to think, what the hell are you doing? Or, who the hell is this? But where we were parked was a large car park that it's on the outskirts of us. As I said, bear in mind it's rural, so there's not many people about. So I was surprised for this force that someone was about to bump the car. But the biggest surprise, the fact it moved the car. You really would have had to slam into the car to get it to move. So we've stopped talking straight away, and I've glanced over to my left, and I can't see anything. I don't know if anyone is familiar with the Beetles. They've got not great visibility, but quite good. But I was over to my left and could see nothing. So my instinct, as you do, is to look round into the wing mirror and then look over to the window behind me. And as I did, this is going to sound cliche, but it is what it is. I saw for a brief moment something looked like breath, something breathing on the window. The windows were slightly steamed, so we sat there chatting for a little while. I then looked into my wing mirror, and what I've seen, I can't put a name to it. I've only ever done one interview before, Paul, and I've said if ever I do another interview, it would be with yourself. So hence I'm here. The last interview I had, the person in me tried to, not to get me pin me down, but was saying it was a dogman. I don't know if it was Paul or not. I can't say. It's the first time I ever encountered something, and more or less the last time. But the closest description I can give to what it was it looked like a Irish wolf found on steroids. It was huge thing. It was immediately obvious to me that even though it looked like a dog, something wasn't right due to the size of it. Its fur was whitish grey, and when out of my wing mirror, I could see it. Its head was down a bit, wasn't looking at me. I don't even know to this day if it was aware of my presence. It appeared to be looking more in the direction of the front, where the front tire would be, the ground by there. And it had what looked like ears to me, but they were pinned back on its head. And as it lifted its head, I remember seeing under here that all the fur had like a yellowish brown to it. You see Scotty dogs, they have white fur, and they've also got like the brown tinge to it. It had what looked like that down the front of it. And I don't know whether it spotted something or heard something, but it then turned around. This as soon as I've seen it, it turned around, but it turned in towards the car pole. Rather than doing what I would have thought would be obvious, spin around and gone that way, it's turned in round towards my car, so I'd try and get my hand in. So it's turned in towards the car like this. And it's gone right back on itself, which didn't think anything at the time because I was, how can I say, I was too scared. I was going to say other things, but I don't want to swear online. I was too scared at the time, terrified. It's one of the few times in my life I've experienced the definition when people say your blood runs cold, and my blood ran cold. Turned back on itself and paused at the back end of my car. This I'm now watching via looking at my wing mirror. I'm looking on my shoulder, going back and forth, looking at it. Then taken off like lightning over towards this car park I'm in, over towards the other corner of the car park, which is about probably a good 40 or 50 yards, and it's covered that pole in seconds. And when it's got to the other corner, then it did a quick turn, and this is one of the reasons why last time I spoke, the thought there's a dog man. To me, it looked like when it stopped and headed off along the front of a row of houses, it came up one of its back legs, and I didn't see it go back down, but I could see the top of its head briefly as it disappeared, and it didn't seem to go back down to me. Now, I can't say for sure, Paul, if it did or didn't, but from thinking back, and its head was too high up for it to have been down on its front legs. So that makes sense, Paul. And that was the last I saw. It disappeared out of view, and it appeared ahead to the main road, and that main road then led out into wilderness and up towards a big forest called Wentworth Forest. And that's it in a nutshell, Paul. You know, there's obviously more detail to it. And I've no doubt you want to ask me questions.
I do, yeah. When you describe it turning, Dean, it almost sounds serpent-like, turning in on itself.
The way I think I describe it, Paul, and the best way to describe it is I like Tim Burton films, so I like sort of his take on stuff. And it reminds me now of the cats you've seen Tim Burton movies with, they have the big kink in their back, and it appeared like that when it was crouched. She was pulling itself in tight. And as it turned, it was also like how cats do. It seemed very slinky. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It looked very loose, like it could double back in itself. Well, I don't know of any dogs that can do that. My parents had bred Labradors when I was younger, gun dogs, and I've been around a lot of other breeds, and I've yet to see a dog that can go back on itself so tight. Even a cat, from us, I don't think a cat would be able to.
And this car, you said it had its suspension altered, and so it was very rigid.
Very rigid.
I know we can only kind of assume what kind of animal would have made it move, but I mean, what would have made it move? If you'd have ran at the car, there'd have been movement, surely.
I used to sit on and lean up against the side of the car, and the car wouldn't move.
Right.
That's a lie. Not it wouldn't move, but it would move, Paul, such a small amount. You'd barely feel it. It didn't move, Paul. It was very, very rigid. And the car, this bump really, it jolted the car, shook the car. So I'm assuming it was that did it, because I immediately looked around, and this description I'm giving you, all this took place within 2 or 3 seconds. It was a case of me looking around, looking on my shoulder, and then looking here, count to 3, and it was gone. But it was an awfully long 3 seconds. So 3 seconds.
There's a definite physical, whatever people want to say. I mean, Ron's in. I don't like speaking for Ron, but I've done a pile of questions for Ron, but I think he's in the camp, and he'd tell me. Obviously, he'll reply to me if I'm wrong. That he thinks the Bigfoot. I know we're talking about something else with yours. Is almost a primate that's got abilities that take it into the. I hope I'm not doing him a disservice, into the paranormal realm that wouldn't it make its abilities would seem like magic to us. And what you're describing and the speed it went, but there's definitely a physical. It touched the car and moved it. There's breath on the window.
Yep. It's something, Paul. I've wrestled with, Paul. Paul, you know me yourself, and I'd like to. I'm quite a logical and rational thinking person. Yeah. However, for starters, I don't know if this was a dog man. It matched a lot of the things that they call dog man in inverted commas. But there's elements of things it did. First of all, the size of it. I don't know anything of that size. It was huge.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You said it was like a wolfhound on steroids, and they're a big dog. We know they're lean, but this had a bit of bulk to it as well.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And the actual physical stature and the size of it, Paul. Bear in mind, this thing was, I could see the top, just a crack of light from the street lamps that were there. I see just a crack of light above the top of its back in between my rear window. Now, admittedly, beetles, they slope down the windows, but even still, Paul, this was extremely high, and this thing was crouched down low, almost like it was trying to not be seen, if that makes sense. It was tucked in tight, it was trying to shield itself. Sort of going on to what you said, or touching on the paranormal, for a long time, I would say I definitely believed, but I felt that this dogman phenomena is probably a flesh and blood creature. But the more I've discussed it with other people, the more I thought about Paul, I'm now, my opinion has been completely swayed, because I feel that something of that size, the amount of calorific intake it would have, you'd have to have all manner of things all around the country, up and down the country. The newspapers would be going wild with the sort of things that we finding. So for me, I feel that it must be something we don't understand about the comparison between, whether you want to call realities, dimensions, whatever you want to call it. I feel that's the only way it'd be happening. And people, I've heard some people say, well, it's either this or it's that. Why can't it be both? Why can't something that comes from us, when it comes to our dimension, we put it, well, then surely the laws and physics of our dimension would apply to it, that it has to be here for it to be here, and it would need protein and other vitamins to give its body structure. Well, who's to say that when it leaves here, it can't leave that behind somehow? You know, that only while it's here, the laws of our physics govern it, and when it leaves it, no longer does. Because people say paranormal, I think, Paul, and I'm sure you agree with it, paranormal sometimes can just be a part of science we don't understand yet.
It's almost
ago, women were burned at the stake because they were witches, but they weren't. They were doctors. They were just ahead of the curve, if you want to put it. And I hope I'm not sounding too out there by saying that.
No. You know, I spoke to an American Indian, well, quite a lot, to be honest with you. I've not spoke to him recently, called Larry Sespooch, and about the skinwalkers. And he actually lived near Skinwalker Ranch. And he used to say that it was called Dead Man's Curve, close to where the strangeness happened near Skinwalker Ranch. And he said that these things have just got the ability to slip in and out of our reality. And it were all about our intent. Now, you spent some time when we were making Wolflands. This is dedication for you people. Dean came on a motorbike from Wales in atrocious weather conditions, and just to spend one night in forest with us, and
kidney stones and ulcerative colitis. To remember, there's blood coming out everywhere. I won't go too much into that.
Absolutely terrible.
Anywhere it could.
And I nearly got run over. We're going away from cryptids now, but just tell them the story, Dean.
Oh my goodness! when the chap was blocking the entrance and said you couldn't go down.
He blocked the entrances. We couldn't go down. We'd had a stressful day to start with.
I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get arrested now. Oh, he's going to give that guy a letter. He was being very rude to you. He was very rude, and you were nothing but civil and polite with him, and he was just being stubborn and awkward.
And I got myself a little bit annoyed. I didn't shout at him, but I got out at car and forgot to put my handbrake on.
Forgot about rolling back.
The car were rolling back. I'm running down behind car, holding car. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, I forgot about that. Oh,
yeah, absolutely crazy. But we got into forest, didn't we? And we ended up having a decent night. No cryptid sightings and that. But you know, after what you saw, Dean, and even though it were only brief, and I can see fire spirits. Did Dean only see it in the mirrors? So you can address that one straight away if you want, Dean. Before we jump to that,
I caught a glimpse of it over my shoulder, but again, this was a passing glimpse. A lot of what I saw was in the side mirror, and I could lean over and look down the side of my car, because you can imagine my first instinct when I see this. I'm not consciously thinking, what is this? You just automatically look, and you're trying to think, what the hell is this next to me? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Sorry, Paul. Go on.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, what about your girlfriend at the time? What did she think, or didn't she see anything?
She's asked me what the hell was that, And I said, well, what did you see? She went, I don't know. I saw something against the car. What was it? Because she was still busy chatting away to me. She heard the bump, but just carried on yakking. And I don't think she clocked something was up until she saw me, and she said the colour drained out of me. And we just got there, Paul. I booked out as soon as I could. Start up, like, was gone to a pub. What's it called? It's called the Castle in Square.
Okay.
In Essex Square. Yeah, I think it was there. Sorry, what's that?
Were there any marks left on the ground near the car?
Rob, I couldn't tell you. I was gone immediately. I giggle about it now, but honestly, I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. And I was young and stupid at that age, where nothing scared me. You know, it's like when you're sort of in your late teens, early 20s, and I was boxing at the time, playing rugby. So I was a very fit 16 stone, 6'2", and I turned into a baby. Terrified me, and I got out as soon as I could.
How's it made you? You know, because it's years ago now, isn't it? But how's it made you alone in dark places? Has it made you wary, knowing there's something out there that don't quite fit the norm?
Again, Paul, I would like to say, or not, I'd like to. You would have thought that it would make me very on edge, Paul, but it didn't, Paul. And I don't know whether this is the right place to go into it, but I'm going to go into it because I need to go into this to address parts of it. Paul will probably know, but yeah, I've got to say this. Sorry, I'm throwing in my saying. I was raised very, very strongly, Paul. I put a foot out line. I had a hammering, and I won't go further, but I mean I had a hammering. I think a lot of that has led to the fact, Paul, has led me to a unknown bit that I can push stuff down and keep it quiet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And after this happened, the immediate aftermath is I'm thinking, am I going mad? Did I really see that? Did this really happen? We're not the fact that I had my partner at the time. I would have thought I'd had some sort of strange episode or nod off the car and had a nightmare. I think part of me pushed it down, Paul. I would remember glimpses of it, but I don't know, I guess I just kind of moved on, and as time went by, I thought, well, I must have mistaken it. It's not correct. I'm not sure, Paul, until years ago. I can't remember. I was watching something, or was I reading something? I was either watching or reading something, and then something about Bigfoot came on. I think it was on YouTube when you're doom scrolling through YouTube. And I thought, oh, what's that? I'll have a look. And then I saw this Dogman thing pop up, and I thought, well, what the hell's the name's a Dogman? And so I clicked on that, and heard one or two encounters, and I thought, hang on a minute, this sounds a lot like what happened to me years ago. And from there, Paul, I just started paying more and more attention, and yeah, it led on from there, Paul. There was the opposite hallmarks with mine, that make me question whether it was a Dogman. Because even though I say it was big, it wasn't like you get this big and bulky thing like it's on steroids, or is this being described as a bodybuilder? From what I could see, it wasn't built like that. It built like it had a very deep chest. It was bulky, Paul, as far as something like a Irish Wolfhound goes, but it wasn't bulky to the point of that it had more like a human physique, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah, because I mean, obviously, when you came into the forest with us, we talked about the things that had been seen and experienced in that forest, and the description that Steve and Jim gave of that beast of a thing that stood up while they were around their campfire. That just took it to another level. And then we've got Gamekeeper who sees it going outside at farmhouse. It was nothing like that size. I'm imagining it was nothing like that size. I'm going to ask Les if there's any questions. Just give us a thumbs up, Les, if there is. If there isn't, it's fine.
I can see someone near whilst you're doing that. Fred Flintstone.
Fred Flintstone. Did the creature give off a strong smell? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't smell anything at all from us. Nothing whatsoever.
Okay. And because what I'm going to do, if there's more questions, Les, we'll have them. But if not, I'm going to I've got this for Ron because we were going to jump in. You just hang around, Les. You give us your opinion as well. I'm going to say, let's jump into the woo, mind speak. So we're jumping away from Dean's story, but let's stay with it. What do you think's happening there when these things can allegedly speak into a person's mind? Any views? Or anybody in chat got any views?
I'm not going to dismiss it myself, Paul, because whilst a lot of things could seem the average person way out there, but coming back to what I said earlier on, a lot of things we accept as the norm now these days, years ago, was science fiction. It isn't too many decades ago that people were laughing at the thought of men flying. So, you know, when you look back and think when the Wright brothers, their first flight and how long it took then for the first rocket into space, it's only a couple of decades. And I'm sure when the Wright brothers flew, you could have said to people then, you know, 20, 30 years, whatever, 40 years from now, we're going to go to space. And people would call you a fool and probably put a hat with a D on it on top of you. So yeah, coming back to that, Paul, I don't dismiss it. I've never encountered a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. The topic really interests me, and I'm so pleased you had Ron on tonight. No, I'll definitely be coming back when he is back on.
I hope we get him back on.
I hope so, Paul. I think you will. Yeah. I'll leave it at that. So I don't dismiss it. I haven't experienced it myself.
Yeah, just curious.
I don't dismiss it. Yeah.
What about you? Any views, Les? None?
Yeah, I mean, I've said in the past, I begin to question whether these actual creatures could live underground. But I'm leaning towards interdimensional aspects of it as well. But what's it? I mean, you've been in the North Yorkshire forests, Dean, as you know, you've been up a couple of times, as you said earlier. So I'm thinking, what is to stop these creatures being an underground creature?
It's interesting you should say that, Les. Now, I can't vouch for the veracity of these things I've seen, but I don't know if any of the viewers have seen as well. There's a map that I see pop up from time to time where people, when discussing the missing 411, they'll show where these hot spots are. And strange enough, apparently there's this map they will then show of missing persons. Cave networks. That's right, the US.
Systems, right?
Yeah. It's almost a carbon copy where you see this cluster of all these people go missing. There's also these caves. And then I've also seen one that allegedly was Sasquatch encounters, and that kind of fitted that as well. So,
but do we have them cave systems in North Yorkshire? I mean, I'm not sure that we do. We know people potholing and what have you, but surely looking at the entrances to some of these caves. I'm not knocking what you've said there, Les, but to me, then they've still got to become metaphysical kind of thing, like lose their physicality in some way. The way Ron would have described it a lot better than I'm doing, because I just can't see that, you know, these things are seen and then they're disappearing in some cave system in North Yorkshire. I can't see that at all, to be honest with you. I could see that they're below ground, but not in the way that they're running.
Yeah, well...
The
missing link could be where they just meld into the earth. Are you with me? Would have been probably looking from the interdimensional side of things. Could they just meld into the earth and be underground and then reform? I don't know.
Well, if we remember, sorry, Dean, I'm just cutting through because it'll just time with what Les says. We had a friend who was at Loch Lomond, I think it was, sat behind a granite wall with his partner on a wrought iron seat. So I'm assuming it came through seat as well, because, you know, the wrought iron framework. And a hand these claims came through the granite wall and touched his partner on the hip, fur-covered hand. She screamed because she felt it, and he looked down and saw it, and it retracted. So we're all crazy, and this didn't happen, or there's a little bit to what Les is saying there. Over to you, Dean, sorry.
I kind of agree with Les from one Paul, because the way I would look at it is, if they are coming through, I don't know if that's the correct word, but if they come into where we are via be another dimension, whatever it may be, another realm, are they self-governing that? In other words, if they can come through say they can't then undo themselves to move through a space and then reconstruct themselves. If anything, maybe that hand encounter backs up that theory in some way. And again, it's just things that we haven't got a grasp on yet, Paul. But for me, I think it's a good point with the caves, because if they are going to come in and the whole flesh and blood to the interdimension, they then have to take on the form of a body as we see it, an animal's body, whatever, take on that form, then it's automatically then going to be governed by the rules of nature, which means you can't get cold. You've got to take cover from weather. it makes sense to me. But then it's where do you draw the line between the physical and the metaphysical? It could all be true, but then at the same time, I can understand how it would appear to some people as the woo. But as you said, Paul, either thousands of people are crazy and are complete liars, or something's really going on. I don't believe loads of people are crazy. I know from my old job, a couple of people that have spoken to me that knew I was interested in this sort of thing, and I was trying to write the book. And quite a lot of people come forward who are still serving as well. Came forward who gave me telephone. This happened, that happened. I just find it very difficult to believe that they're lying.
So I've got a question for you, Dean. Do you think then that these creatures, what have you, do you think that they come into towns and cities, like in your case, as fairly regular? Do you think it's a regular thing? Do we get reports of these creatures in towns and cities as much as we do in the forest?
Not sure, Les. For me, sorry, I'm trying to make sure I'm central because I'm moving on the bed, so I'm trying to make sure I'm staying central on the camera.
Okay.
I'm not sure, Les, because the next thing that comes into my mind when we're discussing this thing is I'd want to know the reasons. What are they? And if they are coming here, why are they coming here? Could it be that they are, as we say, cryptids? Could it be we're way off and this is some kind of drone that's being sent here, an organic drone to gather information and go back? Because at the end of the day, if you're an alien species and you want to build something that can operate well in this environment, and then you build a rugged animal that can cover ground quickly, that if someone sees it, it's going to run away from. It's hard to answer that one, Les. I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering it.
And just to follow on from that, and I'm picking up what Paul said earlier, is that if we say, let's play with the idea that there's some kind of interdimensional thing. So Paul said earlier that they practice this man speak because the witness in our film, The Wolflands, actually had a witness there who didn't appear in the film because of his autism.
He just didn't want to be in it, you know.
Yeah, and it was a kind of where he felt this creature had actually spoke to him and not to any other the other two what were in there. So man speak. So the question is then, let's assume then that the man speak comes true, as our witnesses testified in the film, and let's assume that there's some kind of interdimensional creature. So you've got to then take it to a stage further and say, well, what kind of frequency are they working at? Are you with me? I mean, we're down here on this frequency where we just seem to see what we see in front of our eyes, what appears in our mind, and that's it. But what kind of frequency would they be up on?
And they're all across the board, all of the unexplained, all of the phenomena, for want of a better word, must all be using the same type of science, if it is a science and not just some natural ability. Because, and once again, we've said this only other week, we've got the clairvoyants who hear clairaudience, which is mind speak. We've got the alien abductee who hears these beings speaking to them in their minds. So it's mind speak. So they're either it's either a trickster that's got lots of masks, as Barry Fitzgerald would say, or we've got lots and lots of different phenomena employing the same exotic science, as Paul would say. That's my take on it.
Yeah, a tangent on that. I think that Paul reinforces myself, yourself, Les, and I think it was Chris was there when he said it. I think that highlights the need for all the communities to come together, because you're getting the same occurrences happening in different groups, in inverted commas, because you know what it's like, unfortunately, at the moment, it seems to be everything's fractured. Cryptid field, I keep an eye on a few things. I'm on various channels, and there seems to be big divisions here at the moment, which is a shame, because we need to all come together and share information. The only way I can describe it is, yes, they're good and they're broken. They have good points, bad points, but the police service, they have different departments, and the way they do an investigation is by speaking to each other. And, you know, I'm not going to deride the police things they've got wrong. we only hear about the bad things. We don't hear about the 1,000 good things they do a day. But they only get to what things by coming together and saying, well, look, we've got this here. Why do we keep seeing these certain things show up? And they look into it. Sorry, a bit of a tangent, but I want to put in there because I think, that these different communities need to start talking to each other. There's something that's popping up, as you said, with different masks on, but it's the same thing.
It's the same principle, isn't it?
It is the same thing, yeah.
Yeah. Somebody in chat put the question up, how do we know the big cat that's been seen at Danesdyke is not a cryptid? Some cat, and it's a great question, by the way, but not everything's going to be cryptid, and we know the cats are here. But it is an interesting question because June, July is when people tend to be seeing them around, probably around all UK. But as I said many times, I'm in this little bubble and that I'm sort of researching here. And that's why I've been going up at 4 a.m. It's ironic that I were up there at 4:20 and they saw this thing at 9 a.m. and in a little nondescript bit of woodland. And then we've got the question, are they some kind of cryptid? Would we call it a cryptid if it's something that's just slipping through from some other reality? Because it'd still be a natural animal, wouldn't it? Me personally, I just think it's a big cat that's at large in the UK. And I still find it as entertaining and as interesting. But I don't know.
Well, I'm going to throw this into the arena, right? So I've talked about, and Dean's suggested he might be on board with it, of some kind of interdimensionality, some kind of underground cave system, maybe. But what if the big cat scenario is actually related to this? And that's why we never capture them. Yeah, that's why they're very rarely seen on a really good, clear photograph. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's as valid as anybody. Go on, Dean.
Yeah, that's it, Paul. At the end of the day, I'll go along with what you just said, Paul. Until we know otherwise, we've got to look at it. Because the worst thing you can do, I feel, is if you're looking into something, is get rid of things you don't like. Because then you're not really looking into it. You're just trying to find an angle you're comfortable with. Does that make sense?
Does fitting it into your narrative, you know. And I mean, I wouldn't name any UFO organizations, but there's UFO organizations that will totally throw out any report that's got anything to do with a cryptid in it if a UFO has been seen at the same time and things. But I mean, that's just disingenuous to research. If you were a police scientific investigation and you were looking for a criminal, we'll not say what they've done, but something else came into it at the same time, you'd think, and each time this serial criminal, we'll not say the word, this thing that shouldn't fit the narrative kept coming in, you wouldn't throw it out. You'd think, hold on a minute, there's something happening here. We've got to include this in what we're looking into. But they're not doing. There's divisions. There's divisions in Bigfoot research, UFO research, and you touched on it, Dean.
They're doing a disservice. They really are. Sorry, just going back to it, Paul. I think everything has to be taken into account. I know it creates more work, and some people will say, well, you're going to give yourself tons and tons of stuff to deal with. Tough. If you really want to get to the bottom of something, tough. You know, and that's, it's a horrible thing to say, but that is how you got to be. If you're getting stuff that keeps popping up, you've got to look into it. You can't dismiss it because you're not happy with it, or otherwise all you're doing is reaffirming your narrative into the subject.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you said that. That kind of leads me on to something here, Dean. In fact, it leads me on to what I was going to talk about next. And the fact, let's turn this around, a full 360, get away from our pre-thoughts, our preconceptions, our biases, our favorites, and get all that out. And what if we turned all this around on a 360 and said, none of this exists, and it's all in our mind. It's all in our mind projection.
Yep.
So that throws everything that we just talked about out, but it puts it all back on the human, if you know what I mean. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I understand what you mean, yep. Again, it's something we'd have to look into, but the one thing for me that is one of the big flags for me that makes me feel that there's weight behind these subjects, especially the UFOs and things like Bigfoot. is that we've had descriptions that apparently are centuries old. I say apparently because I haven't seen in person, but at some point you've got to say, right, okay, I'm just going to put my trust in the source. Whether it's someone who's got 1,000 degrees and several PhDs, or whether it's just someone who's a part-time reporter, at some point you put faith in them. But I trust it because you hear of cave paintings, drawings, accounts of something happening in America or Alaska, but then in Russia you've got something that looks exactly the same, behaves the same way, and has the same mannerisms. So that's why for me, Les, sorry, I'm not going a bit too far from the subject here, but that's why I don't think it is in our mind, because we've got too much evidence that was just otherwise. If it is just in the mind, then we need to be looking into that. We as a human species, are we a hive mind? Are we then the voice of Earth? It could go off on all sorts of tangents and all different routes to talk about. You know, and there's 1,000 subjects that come from it, but sticking on this topic, I feel there's too much evidence around the world already that something's been here for a long time.
If it's in our mind, Les, if it's all just a figment of our imagination and we're conjuring up these things, then we've got multi-witness accounts who are all conjuring up the same thing or similar things. Do you know? Or is it one person creating it? Is it one person? And I always go back to that ravine in Wolflands, and there's 3 people there. Did one person then conjure this thing in his mind, and they saw it, and they heard it breathing? They saw these self-illuminating eyes. We know everybody's capable of frightening themselves. I mean, if I decide I'm going into Danes Dyke at 1 in the morning, I'm on edge. You're not doing it, and you're not on edge. I'm on edge. But I don't think it's all in people's mind, Les. But it's a great question.
Yeah, I'll just sorry, Dane. I've just got to jump in at this point, and I've just got to tell everybody on the stream, if they're coming and they're hoping to listen to Ron Morehead, we've had technical difficulties with his internet. So thankfully, Dean Cooling is able to come onto the stream and just help us out and continue in tonight's stream. So thank you, Dean, for doing that.
It's saved our life, Dean. I was sat there a little bit like...
I can see you getting frustrated, Paul. I can see those little things that I know. I think he's getting a bit frustrated with the equipment. Yeah.
Well, do you know, it's a shame. We've had great guests on, but Ron were one that we're really looking forward to, because he'd have got through all the quantum Bigfoot theory, and then he would have gone into when they were in that little makeshift shelter when they appeared. It would have been an absolutely brilliant account. So we will try back for that. Now, go on, let's
one more thing as well before I forget. Thanks for the monetary support from Karen Bierman, always a great supporter of the show. She's saying, not all's lost, Paul and Les. We are still here to share and learn.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Karen. And also, Martin Abbas is contributed tonight to the show, and he's saying it's a great show tonight.
Thanks, Martin. Appreciated. And thank you, Karen. And I'm just run a few names here because we've got Margaret there. I don't think we saw Margaret. Blue Shift, Deb Shaw, Fred Flintstone, Warren Hardcastle. I know there's more people, but just there's what I can see. And this morning, Les.
Yeah, I've got a question. Do you want me to run with a question?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Karen Bierman is asking, Dean, do you feel you were targeted? You may have been projecting an energy that attracted it.
I don't know. It's a hard one to answer. I'll expand on that. Why? Possibly, the reason why we parked there was for the fact that it was quiet, and it wasn't that evening, but it wasn't too long before that my partner said to me, "Oh, this car park's apparently haunted," and I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, there used to be a Roman garrison there in Usk, and that apparently Roman soldiers have been walking there." So I would say, "Well, look, when we're going to park sometime, let's sit there and you can tell me about it." And that evening, we parked there, and she was going to tell me about it. Now, was the fact that I was thinking about something paranormal maybe causing that? I don't think so, because that's something like I didn't know even what Dogman was, and I'd never seen anything before that, and I like it, and I've never seen anything since. So I don't know. You know, I've seen glimpses of things, and I could have gone, "Well, was that in inverted commas Dogman, or was that just me seeing something from a weird angle?" Because you know, the places where I've gone and where I go wild camping, a lot of moorland, steep hills, so it's hard to say. But
I
don't think so, but I'm not going to dismiss it because I'm
That-
open to anything.
That were interesting though, Dean. A point that we'd not picked up on before, and I'm glad that Karen asked that, because you were already then in mindset where, I don't mean you were a bit edgy, but you'd heard about the Roman road, and what else is interesting is obviously other things of a paranormal or a strange nature have taken place around that area.
Literally where I was parked, Paul, I was parked on the spot. There was a small building there. I can't remember what it's for now, but she got me out last week and she got out and showed me there was all cobblestone still there. And she said, this is the outer wall. And there was a little plaque there you could read about. And I believe it's still there in this car park, opposite the ball school in Ask. I could be wrong, but I know there's definitely information online about it. I can't remember if it was a Roman garrison. It was a building for Romans, and Roman soldiers used to gather there. And the story that I've been told is that it could be seen there on occasions, and apparently you can hear marching feet sometimes, or they've been spotted. But part of me wants to say, I don't want to say this wrong, but for some reason I want to say that one of the stories was that they were seen from the hip up, though. And the theory was that that's because the Roman road is still there and tarmac's just been laid over it over the decades, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, Paul, because even if I didn't believe in all that, not that I didn't believe, but I wasn't aware of these things, maybe it proves that my mind was open, though, to the paranormal. Is there a part of your brain that becomes susceptible to that by just the very fact that I was open to the thought that maybe something paranormal will take place? Do we consciously need to be aware of it? Or
Les has wanted to ask something here, Dean.
Got that third eye or something?
Pardon? Yeah, I just want to come in here because this. I want to ask this before I forget. When you had this encounter on that one night, it was only one night, wasn't it, Dean? It was only the one night, And you said you was only young at the time, and who did you tell, and when did you tell people about this? How long after the event did you tell anybody about this event, and what was their reaction when you told them?
No one. I told no one. We went to the pub and mentioned it. There was someone called Roger there, a guy called Luke, and his wife, which ran, I think it was Luke, and his wife owned the pub at the time. I think her name was Helen. I'm sure people could check this if they want to, because the pub.
You've told me this. I can remember you telling me.
Yeah. And we went there, and they were dismissive of it, but they were all quite drunk. But they had a beer garden, and I was that sort of freaked out by it. Me and Jen just went out and sat in the beer garden. Sorry, Paul. Sorry, Les, I was trying to remember your question. Yeah, it was a very long time, Les, because part of me was in denial about it. Part of me, if I'm honest, part of me was embarrassed about it. Paul, my previous employment, as do you, Les. How do I go from doing that to then saying to someone, oh, by the way, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, this took place. Oh, really? There's your P45. Does that make sense? To understand my position and what I...
we've no need to say what it was, but it were an highly responsible position, weren't it, really?
Yeah, so I would have had my cards pulled immediately, get this guy out anywhere with, weapons and out the back door.
So just for the people on the stream and the audience, Dean, when did you actually come out publicly with this, and what circumstances was that around?
I started noticing, I saw something about Bigfoot on YouTube, something like that, and I started seeing this thing, Dogman, keep popping up. So I paid notice it, and there's something called Dogman Encounters Radio. I don't know if you've heard it or not. And so I started listening to those. I thought, well, I'll see what this is about. So I sort of keep popping up all the time. I thought, well, look, what's that? What's this thing? And I only listened to a couple of episodes, and I thought, hang on a minute, this is what I saw. This sounds exactly like what I saw. No, sorry, not exactly. Sounds a lot like what I saw. I'm very careful of what I say because I want to be truthful. It sounded a lot like what I saw. And there was almost like a flood of memories. Once I always gave in to myself, if that makes sense. I thought, okay, I need to speak about this. That's when it all came back. There's one or two bits of it, even now, that Hans spoke to. I want to speak to you, Paul, about. I think I've said this before. Because there's one or two elements that, even now I am spoken about, that, Yeah, I'll see them when I speak to Paul when
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
not on air.
That's good.
Those people, they are one or two elements even to this day.
Well,
because it's hard for me to talk about, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense, mate, honestly. And we're going to meet up at some point this year. I know we are. So if is there any more questions, because I just want to mention something about Dane's Dyke this week when I went in.
Just have a look. Right, I think you've gone through this, but we'll put this on in this from Alison, our moderator tonight. Would you have referred to it as a werewolf at the time?
I doubt it, because, and let me explain that, it terrified the life out of me, so I wasn't even thinking about that sort of thing at the time. And, you know, respectfully, Alison, I didn't have any reason for me to think it would be that. Admittedly, it looked like that sort of thing, but I don't. Maybe I'm being too exact in my way of thinking, but I didn't. It's not like I saw someone changing from a human into a wolf. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I just saw something that to me was terrifying. It didn't make sense, and it was terrifying. But I'd be lying if I thought it was a werewolf at the time, Alison.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just get in at this point, Paul?
You're just getting everything, Les. Just keep going.
Yeah. Books. Where can people buy your books, Paul?
The books are available via truthproof.uk, and the DVD is also available truthproof.uk as an hard copy. You can also download this via Amazon Prime, and you can get the books on Kindle via Amazon, and the books will be back on Amazon as well shortly as paperbacks as well. Oh, and they're on eBay. So if it's first time you've listened to our stream, people, and you're thinking, Christ, what's been happening here? We had a brilliant guest lined up, and I still maintain that we did, but we'd got terrible sound issues. And I think they were at Ron's end. I think they've got to have been, unless people are going to say that they can't hear us. But that's just the way of things, and we can't help that. So, look back at some of the other
basement version.
You what, mate?
I said you've ended up with the bargain basement version, which is me.
No. It's Dean. You came to the rescue, mate. I'm so pleased that you did. And do you know this week, as Les has been on cliff tops and done a bit of filming with us, and as I said, the group of us, there were 9 people there. But Monday, because of this cat sighting, I've known about it now. I've known about it for years, but June, July, it seems to be prominent, which is interesting because June, I always say June's richest month for unexplained phenomena in areas that I look at. So to the person that says, could it be some kind of cryptid? You might be right, but I don't know. But I found myself in Dane's Dyke just after 4 a.m. On Monday. And me and the Bobster, and we're walking down, and I've got the GoPro on, and I'm just having a little yarn to it, and I get to the beach, and it's a low tide, and there's a man on the beach. I were amazed because you okay, Dean?
Yep, I'm sorry.
Just okay. There's never anybody up there. Usually when I'm there, any road. So I let him. It were right near water's edge, and it were a low tide. So it's getting light. So me and the Bob, we had a little wander down. Idea were to walk up into woods anyway. So as we're walking back, he's where you leave the beach. He's there. He's just stood there. This young guy, 25, 30 years old, said hello. It turns out he'd camped overnight in Dane's Dyke, and just having a natter. Obviously knew nothing about anything I do, so there's nothing been put into his mind, and I didn't tell him why I were there, but I did say to him, how did camp go? And he's up in woods, and he says, well, all right, really. He says, I lit a fire. He says, at one time I went into woods, and he said, my torch, he said, my light had not broke, but just gone flat. Everybody's rechargeable torches, aren't they? And I went into woods for a little bit more wood, see if I could find some more firewood. He says, and I got lost. He says, but I came across an extremely cold spot in wood. He says, I said, what? Did it unnerve you? He says, yeah, it did, because everything else had been comfortable or where I'd been. And I don't mean sat round fire. I mean walking around, and we come across this cold spot. So that what first strange thing. And I'm just questioning this guy. He's no knowledge of truth proof books or anything. So he gets to his fire, and then he doesn't know time. He can't recall time that this happened. He said, but in the night, as I'm laid there, he said, I heard rusting steel cranking, as though something were being turned, like heavy rusting steel or big steel being dragged. He's in a woodland. There's no cars burnt out in Danes Dyke. He's up there on top in woodland where his camp is. So my next question was, how close? He says, right close to me. And that, you just got one guy who's been camping up there. Now, all right, come on, there'll be somebody in chat going, well, there'll be an explanation for that. Yeah, there might be. There might be a perfectly rational explanation. But you're in Danes Dyke, you're in 2.5 miles of Neolithic earthwork and woodland, as it spans across the headland. And he's up there on his own at night, and just randomly I asked him if anything strange happened. And I promise you, I'd not pre-warned him. And he comes out with that. And I said to him, got the GoPro out, took advantage of the situation. But I did say to him, do you mind if I film you? Would you just say that to the camera? And I told him what I was doing then, and I told him where it would end up, and he gave me the green light, and he told me about it. So you'll be getting that. It's only 3 minutes, but you'll be getting that shortly.
Oh,
sorry,
have I interrupted too early? Sorry.
No, it's done.
Yeah.
Do you know what's blown my mind? You've said that, Paul. Are you aware of these stories that come out of a place called the LBL in America?
Land Between the Lakes. We've just had Ron on, and I'm trying to get Martin Groves on. I hope his sounds is better. But yeah, Martin's the guy.
Yeah, I hope I'm not. I'm not going to say too much.
Don't say it. Just let's do it. Let's do it.
Right, okay. Martin Groves, in his account, the thing he said that stuck in his mind more than his encounter, or the thing he said that has made him question things over and over again, was he described hearing the sound of old metal, like large metal doors opening and slamming shut. Elijah Hedison from the Cryptid Studies Institute, Johnny Henson's son. I don't know if you know them.
No.
He has mentioned accounts on his channel where people have, in different encounters, people I assume don't know each other, have said that they've heard the sound of rusty, heavy metal doors slamming shut. Who else? I've heard that over and over again, Paul.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And as I say, it's totally random. And we'll put that out as a short link to it, other stuff that I had on that morning, because this guy, he give me the green light to do that. And middle at night at Danes Dyke, quiet hours at morning. And I said to him, how close? He said, very close. I said, it frightened you? He says, it did a bit, yeah. But you wouldn't expect it. There's only trees, grass and weeds up there. So it's kind of fascinating. And, on I'll not say where, in Bridlington, there's close to Arbor, there's a guy there that I've spoke to many times. And in 1966, he was up near Bridlington, what would be Bridlington Hospital now, but before it was Bridlington Hospital, it was just a little bit of woodland and, trees and rough ground. And they were chopping trees down, him and his brother, illegally, 1966. I think they're quite safe now. And they were trimming branches off for some man who probably were giving them pennies for it, who were going to take them away later. These were just young lads. Like, I think he said he were about 15, 16, and his brother were younger. So they're chopping these trees down. He says, and he hears this, he sees this flash of light in the sky. It's sort of just turning dark. And he looks up, he said, and he sees this wedge-shaped UFO. You can get to the sound, it'll make sense in a minute, Dean and Les. He sees this wedge-shaped object just stationary in the sky. And he says it's got like, a gas flame, the blue flame. It's got that going all the way around it, from the point to the back. He says, and it's polished. It looks like polished silver, but it's just wedge-shaped, like a piece of cheesecake on its side. He says, I grab our lad. That's kind of how he talked. He said, I dragged him into edges. He says, and we're looking at this thing. He says, and his main concern, what he says, because if I didn't take him back, my dad would kill me. That's what his exact words. If I didn't get back with him, he says, plus we were up to no good. He says, well, I'm looking at this thing. He said, and then it made a clunking sound. It made a sound like the most heaviest piece of metal machinery that you could imagine, and it clunked. So you wouldn't expect that from this streamlined wedge-shaped thing. You wouldn't expect it to be like something from Flintstones. He said, but it made this sound, and then it like moved forward in a judder, and then it just shot away. I was going to say out to sea, but it didn't. It shot away at great speed, and it had been gone. It was gone. But do you know the biggest thing that's puzzled this guy ever since 1966 is that sound? He says, I've tried. He says, I run it through my mind. I can hear it. He says, and I've listened for things ever since then that were close to it. And every time you say, I don't know, you might be watching an advert about the steelworks or, you know, big machinery dropping things in warehouses and things, and you hear that sound. He says, now, as soon as I hear something, I go, what it like that? He says, but I can't. Nothing's replicated this strange metal clunking sound. So that's it. That's one of his accounts, one of his stories. I think I've told it before. I'm not certain. I know I have, but I don't think we've done it on live stream. But
Dude, I'm gonna throw this in the mix. Dean, you might have read some of these, and I know Paul's probably seen some of these videos. And these videos went out a few years ago. Now it was people who live in urban areas where they were hearing these metallic sounds. So this is all over the world. This was in Scandinavia, wherever, America, obviously, and I think in the UK as well. So, but nobody would own up to producing these sounds like big manufacturing processes. It was just silence. So, do you think that ties in with the sounds loosely with what the UFO was making, Paul, or?
I suppose it could do. I don't know. I don't know what your views. What's your views, Dean?
I think that's an excellent thing to look at, Les, or a really good point to raise. Something which one thing I find strange about it all as well, and I don't know what makes it suit me, but someone encounters what can only be described as a werewolf, and it chases them through woods. If they remember the doors being slammed, someone is a Dane's Dyke, someone scary and all these things. They remember the doors being slammed. That gentleman saw that. You've just seen a triangle hovering in the sky with what sounds like to me plasma discharge. Something you've never seen before, mind blowing. But he's remembered the steel.
You're spot on.
Steel. I've heard it again and again. Why are they remembering that? And yeah, I'm not saying that they're discarded, but why is that the prominent thing in their mind? Has that been planted in there?
Yeah, I wonder. I not necessarily planted. I wonder if they actually heard it. It were audible. I wonder if that were just to further confuse things. I don't know.
Possibly.
You know, I really don't know, Dean.
It'd be interesting to see where all these phenomena have taken place. For example, where was the UFO or UAP, whatever they want to call them these days? Where was that? Did the sound come from over there? Because then it's distraction. But if it's taking place in the same place,
no, he thought it was that object making the sound. You know, and just a strange one. 1966. I don't know.
I've heard it again and again, Paul. Again and again, I've heard that the metal doors. I'm sure I've heard it several times on Sasquatch Chronicles. I've definitely heard it on YouTube, just going through random things, because the more you hear it, the more you become it. It's like when you buy a car, you never see a yellow car. You buy a car, you suddenly see yellow cars everywhere.
Yeah,
it's kind of the same with YouTube. When I hear something, I hear it all the time, and that metal slamming door. Sorry, I'm going on, aren't I?
No, you're not. You're not. No, not at all. I mean, but they talk about hearing car doors slamming, don't they? And the sound of doors slamming deep in forest. You know, and how strange is that? And I touched on it with Ron, and Ron, I think, is switched on to everything that I were going to talk about. I just think with the time delay and the broken English that must have been coming through to him. He weren't getting the questions, but they've been hearing clicking sounds, and some of these clicking sounds haven't been in the forests. They've been at the people at their homes or around close to where they live, which brings it into suburbia. And that's what I was getting at, because we know that dolphins and the larger whales produce clicks, and it's echolocation for prey to locate where their target is. That's what I was getting at with Ron, and I think Ron would have got it. He just didn't hear me correctly. Do you know what I mean? That's because I've not heard anybody say, do you think it could be echolocation? If they're fixed on something and they're producing these clicks, could that be what it is? I mean, we're just throwing these things out there, hooks, and somebody in chat might come up with something else that just adds a little bit more meat. But Martin,
I've heard that, Paul.
Well, that's just it's the first time I've said it. Yep. I've not read it anywhere, and I was just thinking about it because we know that the whales do it. You know.
Sorry, Paul.
Can I?
Oh, one sec, Dean. Go on, Les.
No, carry on, Dean.
What I meant, sorry, Paul, was that's not the first time I've heard from different people them talking about experiencing something and it following them home. And I've heard it because of like the hitchhiker, hitchhiker phenomena, or the hitchhiker something. There's a channel on YouTube. Oh, what's the name of it? It's a Bigfoot channel based in Florida. And one of the gentlemen in the group had like a full-on either meltdown or experience. It's not for me to say either way, but he said that they went camping, he heard voices, he had visions, he was threatened by the leader of a Bigfoot or something like that. This all, I don't want to say whether it's in his mind or not, but they said that after this happened, they were experiencing this. The main guy that runs the channel, his wife, she was hearing clicking sounds around the house, and was seeing, the only way she just described was like a troll or a gnome that was black. She'd see down the corner of her eye moving round. Now I know there are pardon?
I say it's fascinating. Yeah.
I know there are things that can happen, Paul, natural phenomena, and I'm sure a doctor that's into how the brain works, but also eyes will say this. Like you hear about people being stood in the corner of the room, apparently that's something to do with the retina and the way your lens is shaped. It'll make it. Sometimes you see someone in the corner of the room, it's just the eye causing that effect. But it's the clicking. That's not the first time, Paul. I've heard that. I've heard it from people that are in different places around the world that mentioned coming home and hearing clicking.
Well, just like we're talking about the clicking, and just like Les were talking and you that earlier about the mind speak and the voices. There's somebody in chat. I'm not going to say who it is. He can say if he wants to say who he is. But there's somebody in chat who experienced something at Bempton, and it followed him home. I've heard the account in quite a bit of detail. And but Dean, it weren't cryptid related. He first of all, this guy heard a voice speak to him audibly when he's there. Then when he gets back to his home, and I hope you don't mind me saying this because I know you're listening to this, when he gets back home over a period of days and weeks, there's knocks on his walls, there's sound of a little girl giggling, there's all sorts of things. And then what I found most interesting, what this chap told me, and I love the way he put it, he says it's contagious. And I thought, wow, yeah. He said because he'd spoken to a couple of friends of his, and suddenly he told one about it. I think he can correct me if I'm wrong, but not the other one, because he kept getting an image of a face in his head, a really frightening image, and that's right, he hadn't told them, and he kept getting this image, but he'd been with these friends, and then they rang him and started telling him that they'd got this image of this face. And I just his analogy that it's contagious. I thought it were really apt, and I'm really happy that he'd shared that with me. But it's another aspect of all of this strangeness that it's got the ability to kind of. It might not even know that there's a distance of say 70 miles between the location and where you live, or 50 miles or 500 miles. It might be just as much as a thought. You know, when we talked about in book 1, I wrote about the intermind connection, and you know, and I used a rock angler as an example when he'd looking at this strange star that he'd never seen before out over at North Sea. really bright one in heavens, and he's looking at it, realized it's not a star. He said, and suddenly it's over my head. Didn't see it fly from anywhere. It lit the ground up like a welder's torch. He says it was just there, and then it had gone. And you know, I think we connect with these things, or certain people do at certain times, and that certainly happened. Yeah, he's put in chat. Yep, hitchhiked. So you know who you are. Yeah.
Just, I don't mind. Just want to quickly say, whoever that
No,
is,
please do.
If you saw me shaking my head, please don't think it's not because I don't believe you. That's one of my worst nightmares. I've never had an experience to go through. I don't think I have. Maybe I don't know what everything. I'm not bothered by that sort of thing. But that sort of thing, oh God, makes my blood run cold before of it. Coming home and seeing things around your house and that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm not bothered by things unless they come my home. Then if it becomes my home, yeah, that.
It'd be frightening.
That would terrify me. Yeah. I don't like the thought of that portal. Not one bit.
Sorry.
So I shake my head. Not because I didn't believe them. I just want to know where I shook my head. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Okay, so we'll just put a couple of not questions as so much, but observations from Debbie Shaw. Those predator type things also make a kicking sound.
Yep.
Right. Well, Deb. Could it be what I've just suggested earlier? Then some kind of echolocation, just like the whales do to locate their prey, even if we don't become prey.
What do you make
that's
of
frightening.
Predator
That's frightening.
thing? What do you make of this predator thing? Have you heard the stories about it? There's one at the end of the Misinformed one, the Hunters, and there's a doctor or a guy who specialises in cameras, and his wife caught something on her mobile phone. She described it as the predator.
Well,
visually.
What we will try and do. I say try because if it weren't for you, Dean, we'd have failed tonight. We will try and get that lady on. We did try a few weeks ago, and that's Jan Maccabee.
Right.
Probably a few months ago. And anybody that doesn't know, and I know a lot of our listeners will, that Bruce Maccabee is the photographer, the photographic analysis expert, and Bruce sadly passed away a week or two before we were going to do the stream. And because Jan were going to come on and tell us about what she saw in the hunting blind when she was in the blind, and it crossed my mind whether I think it's time, innit? We've got to put a bit of time between it, but we will try and get Jan on eventually. Yeah.
Can I just bring this one in? An observation from Fire Spirit, a cold spot. The cold spot, the guy who was talking about in the woods who camped, Paul. Maybe something drawing on the energy in that location.
Yeah, good point. And do you? I don't know, Fire Spirit, but so would that suck out the heat then? Is the heat the energy? I suppose heat is energy. I don't know, but yeah, it's valid, and you could be right. I don't know what the metal not clunking, the heavy. He said it sounded like something cranking, like doing a revolution, doing a turn. But yeah, fascinating. Go on, Les. Have we any more?
No, that's all I've got, I think, for now.
Oh dear. No. Go on.
If you don't mind, Paul, just a quick one. Whilst you're on the subject of the predator or the visual phenomenon that's taking place, on YouTube there's a channel called One Big Monkey, and I discovered this a while ago just by accident. As you know, I'm into wild camping and all that sort of thing. And this gentleman, he's got a channel called, I think it's One Big Monkey. Paul, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos he's got. None of them are anything to do with the unexplained, ghosts, or anything else like that. But there's one video on there which he did, and he goes, I can't remember this, towards his earlier days, and he describes how he was sat in the forest and he heard something and saw something just like Predator. He said he saw a mottling effect go up a tree about 20 foot from him and crossed over. No, sorry, he was aware of it behind him, and he heard it making clicking sounds. And he went up the tree, across a branch, and then he saw the branch spring down, and it landed on a branch opposite. And this branch was quite thick, he said, and it bent with the weight. And again, this was making a clicking sound and was translucent, almost like water moving on the tree. And that's the only video he mentions it. He goes into it.
It's
and he explains on there, I don't believe in that sort of thing, but I can't explain what it was.
No, it must be a terrifying thing to see something like that. But I wonder if it's any different to what the fisherman at Hornsey, close to us, saw whilst he's night fishing, and he sees a figure walking up the beach. It's kind of the opposite. It's the deconstruct. He said it was really thin. Even if it were a woman, it was really, really slim. He said, but when I stood up, not just to make myself aware, partly to stretch my legs, it pixelated out and it had gone.
Right.
You know, so I don't know. I really don't know. And it's terrifying, isn't it? Because
yeah, the same as you, Paul.
I know that somebody on the cliff tops with us very recently claimed that they'd been touched inside, like pushed. And not pushed as in get over the cliff, but pushed inside. And you think to yourself, if there is something there with that ability, and you were looking over these 300 to 400 foot cliffs, that's frightening, isn't it? That's absolutely frightening. Yeah. And who would know? You know, got too close to edge and fell. You know, that's all it could be explained as. You wouldn't be. There's no way you'd ever know, is there? But,
how often have you heard something, a tragedy happening, and people say they seemed like they were in a good frame of mind, and they just went to a cliff and did that?
He or she would never have done that. Why? You know, we can't imagine that they'd have ever done anything like that. And go on, Les. I think Les.
Yeah, I just want to put this on the screen while you're talking about figures and slim figures and whatever on the beach there. Tony Worrell's come up with this account, I should say. There's an old water plant in Essex where workmen have seen a tall hooded figure in the fields next to it, and each person that saw it said they saw it again just once at their homes. So are we talking about the hitchhiker effect here?
I think so, yeah. I mean, basically, you switched on to it then, Tony, aren't you? You know, once you've gone from I believe in that to knowing. It's no longer a belief, you know. And if it's these things might not have to travel, like we've said before. It might just be a thought process, you know. Because I don't know where I know the hitchhiker effect, and I know what we're talking about, but I don't know whether people think this entity actually travels with them, and somehow it's attached. I don't know, in some way to the person. Because I don't think that. I think it's just a matter of thought, and you know, just like we can concentrate and go into deep thought and connect with things, I think that's what's happening. They've got this extra ability. Any views?
Have you got any views there, Dean?
God, I'm stuck on this one. The thought of that terrifies me again. I think that's terrifying. But I suppose the only way I quickly think of it is to kind of put a bit of a scientific head on. You can, you know, there's ways in which electricity can discharge into us, and we can carry with that current, like static, for example. And is that what that is? Or does it work in kind of the same way that static electricity works? Do you encounter this phenomena, and this phenomena, static electricity, builds up with you, and when you leave, you take a small portion of that phenomena with you? Is that what it is? I just really don't know. Terrified.
Well, do you know at the height of when a lot of things were happening in this property of ours, and all girls were at home, that have all been teenagers, and because you know your own home. I mean, everybody in chat will do this. You don't need light on, do you? You get to the bathroom at night. Well, some people will, but you just walk to the bathroom, don't you? And this is a big house, big winding staircase over 2 or 3 floors. And I went upstairs onto first floor in the darkness. Now we're going to go to the bathroom, and one of the girls came into hallway below and put the light on, and on the landing, and these were big landings. I mean, we're talking, there's 5 meters, one of them landings lengthwise. I don't mean wide, you know, because to contain this staircase. But on the landing, it looked like, once again, you're leaving yourself open for ridicule. It looked like a 3-foot tall teddy bear that had been electrocuted. It just, you know, iron filings when they all cling to a magnet.
Yep.
And it was like that, as though it could be seen. And I weren't supposed to be seen. Truly that, and I saw it. The light went on, and it was there just for a split second. Just strangest thing. I don't know what that's all about, but that's obviously, if like we talked about earlier in the week, if what Les is thinking now, what Dean's thinking now, what everybody in chat's thinking, if all your thoughts are going out there into the ether, and they can be heard, just like I turn a radio on and we can hear it.
Yep.
But this phenomena, whatever it is, whatever this exotic science is, it actually can hear our thoughts. And if that's happening, that is the reason when some military unit go into the forest or into the jungle to capture evidence of Bigfoot, to capture whatever's been seen, all them thoughts are out there. You've no chance. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah,
He's always going to be one step ahead. If Paul's just thinking he's going to pick his camera up, bosh, it's gone. Why don't anybody ever get these things on mobile phones? I just looked down to get my phone. It's gone. The thought process, and they can hear our thoughts like we can hear each other now. Just throwing hooks out there. It's not forced to be true. It's just a thought.
It definitely has credence to what they say. Sorry, go on, Les.
Yeah.
My theory on the hitchhiker effect is this. I think the hitchhiker effect, in my own opinion, is certainly geared towards the demonic side of the phenomena. It's the demonic, and lots of our guests have talked, and they've done the research in the demonic side of the phenomena, Paul, and I'm leaning towards that. It's somewhat what wants to do evil towards us.
There's certainly don't seem good, does it? It's a frightening concept, and people they're afraid by whatever's happening.
Yeah, and
go on.
Yeah, so basically, it's when we and don't forget the human psyche. We can let these portals in. This is why we have people who've got severe mental issues. I think, because obviously realms of this type of thought processes, be it demonic or otherwise, can get through.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I think there's something to be said for that, and if we're talking about the Bigfoot phenomena, the cryptid phenomena, are they interested in people who think slightly different to normal Joe public, somebody with autistic tendencies or Asperger's, which is, I don't know, and that I've put myself slightly on that scale because I do get focused on things, but are they focusing on things? And people who slightly don't think out of the box and are not conforming to how they would expect things, and that interests them. I don't know. It's fascinating. There's as much as you throw one theory out there, there's 1,000 more answers, and people in chat will probably come back with some for us. I mean, well, they won't actually because we've got 3 minutes.
We've got a couple of minutes left.
Go on, Dean.
Yeah, go on, Dean.
Sorry. I think it makes sense, or what adds weight into it again is where we were talking, or we've been talking about how things pop up in different fields. One of the things I'm interested in UAPs, Paul, especially as I've spoken to yourself, and the more we've become friends over the years, I've shown more interest, and I'm sure I mentioned his name to you before, Paul, but Stephen Greer, and he has a thing called SETI 5, and his view is that if you want to communicate with aliens, you need to basically, I'm cutting it very briefly, I'm sure there's more to it. You need to learn to meditate, and you make a mental contact with them, and you say to them, "I'm here." Don't get me wrong, there appears to be a lot more of this, but in a nutshell, you speak to them via your mind, say, "I'm here," and that's how they travel you. Wherever they are in the universe, they will find you and come to you immediately. And it's strange again that that's popping up, and no matter what the phenomena is, the narrative remains the same.
It makes a lot of sense. And although I've never done that, you think about that thought process and the deep thought, and we'll jump to trauma because I know I've talked about that, and people who've lost a loved one and they're concentrating on them, and suddenly I don't know whether we're conjuring that image, but in certain instances they see the image of the deceased person, and once again it's deep thought, isn't it? It's the focused effort of concentrating on one thing. And I'm not saying it's the same as CE5, but it's just a thought, isn't it? I think we probably all underestimate the power of what's inside here.
Oh, without doubt.
On that note, gents, I think we are at the end of the show. I've got to thank everybody for the monetary donations tonight. That was Martin, Avis, and Karen Beerman, and thank you, Dean, especially Dean, to come in
thanks,
and
Dean.
standing in.
Yeah.
For Ron tonight. Yeah.
I don't usually say it. Or
go on, Dean.
sorry, I don't usually hear you say this, so I'm going to say it. Please, folks, hit the like button. And if you'll be so kind, if you're not, please subscribe to the channel. I know they're both too modest to ask you to do that, but I'll ask you because I love the channel.
Thank you very much, Dean.
Yeah.
And last word a word for Ron Morehead. Thanks, Ron, because technical issues, and we'll try and get you back on. So, Dean, thank you. Les, thanks. Alison, and everybody in chat for putting up with us, because it's not been the smoothest of shows. Thank you.
And we'll see you all on Sunday.
Yeah.
Bye.